What's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Ice with Tim. And today I got a guest with us. You got my friend Kevin.
How's it going, guys?
Who's a huge New Jersey Devils fan, but is also very knowledgeable of hockey. And he's going to help me today discuss the winners and losers of the NHL trade deadline, along with the latest news in the NHL. And then we're going to take a little deep look into the hottest teams in the NHL and how we feel this could affect the playoffs and how that's going to shape out. So we're going to go through two teams that we think are the biggest winners and two teams that are the biggest losers in today's episode. So, Kevin, why don't you discuss what you think the biggest winner was?
All right, so I'm going to get it started. I'm saying my biggest winner, or maybe the general consensus between the two of us, would be that it's Nashville. They picked up 4 strong guys. So Simmons from Philadelphia. They gave up Hartman and a 2020 fourth-round draft pick. They did a straight-up with Minnesota, Granlund for Fiala. And then they did something a little bit interesting. They grabbed some bigger guys, maybe to shore up their back end. So they grabbed Boyle from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a second-round 2019 draft pick, and McLeod for a 2020 7th-round pick. Now, Simmons and Granlund, great forwards. I believe last 5 years, both of them have at least 45 points on the season. Boyle, the other year he went through that battle with cancer, with leukemia, but he's back and stronger than ever. I think he brings a lot of character to the team. Him and McLeod are both big veterans, so they're not afraid to get physical. What were your thoughts on guys specifically?
Yeah, I think the additions of Boyle and McLeod was a little similar to when Nashville got Mike Fisher out of retirement last year and then signed Hartnell for the third line. Because it seems like at the end of the trade deadlines, like Winnipeg, Minnesota, Vegas, and Nashville all want to beef up their third and fourth liners. And it seems like in the East, you have a lot of skilled teams like Tampa Bay and Toronto, but then when you get into the West, you have still Nashville and Vegas are skilled teams, but their third and fourth lines are big players.
Yeah, I thought the draft this year was interesting. I heard from a lot of other sources that say the last few years haven't been that eventful, but I think it was the general consensus that once big names were gone, a lot of these teams pushing for their playoff run really wanted to shore up their back end, third, fourth liners, some lower end defensive players. But yeah, overall, great moves for Nashville.
Yeah. Coming off of a President's Trophy winning season, they're definitely in contention and want to get a Stanley Cup in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have too many years left when you think about it.
So the next winner, in my opinion, was Vegas for their trade for Mark Stone. Not only did they get Mark Stone, they also got Lindbergh in exchange for a good prospect defenseman, Brandstrom, another Lindbergh, and a 2020 second-round draft pick. In my opinion, that's the best part of the deal for Vegas, is they didn't give up a draft pick in this year's draft, and not only that, they didn't give up a draft pick that was in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas, obviously still being the newest team in the league, they haven't really had to go through any type of long-term troubles yet. They started off on fire last year, going all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and it looks like they're definitely going to go far in the playoffs this year. So it is nice that they didn't have to give away a lot of long-term assets to really, Stone. Everyone was going after Stone.
Stone was the biggest guy on the market.
Yeah, exactly.
And Vegas may have had their Vegas may not look as hot as they did last year because
which is to be expected.
Yeah, which is to be expected, and they're third place in the Pacific right now. But they are currently on a 3-game winning streak, and Fleury is just coming off another shutout. And Fleury has to have at least 10 shutouts on the season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I listened to an interview once with Fleury, and I think his 2 biggest takeaways he wants from his career is to get as many shutouts as possible and to finally score a goal. I mean, I don't know how realistic the second one is, but I mean, he is going on fire with his shutouts. So let's get into the losers now.
Yeah. So you want to do the first one?
I believe biggest loser, or maybe not the biggest loser, but one of them is going to be Ottawa. They traded away Duchesne and Stone, and I believe, is it Dzingel they traded away a little earlier on?
They traded Duchesne and Dzingel within 2 days to Columbus.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think they got an equal return.
No.
You know, they got a lot of long-term assets, but the question really is their front office really going to be able to turn those into like realistic, like strong players in the past? Another thing was their GM said that they were keeping the stars of the future. So I mean, obviously with how they're going, it's definitely going to be a rebuild. But whether they kept the right players and gave away the right ones is still yet to be seen.
Yeah, and I still go back to this. It blew my mind when I saw the Stone trade because there wasn't a first round pick involved in it.
Right, yeah,
Like,
it was for a second round, so I mean, yeah, you're still going to get a great player out of that. The draft this year is supposed to be just racked with good guys.
But there was at least 10 teams that wanted Stone.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, honestly, they probably should have gone with a first round draft pick. I mean, they didn't get any players back for him.
No.
So, why not just try and get the best you can?
Yeah. And then, well, of course, Columbus is the next loser, in our opinion. And that's tied in with Ottawa because Columbus confused me at this trade deadline because I heard reports that they were trying to get rid of Panarin, but then they never got rid of Panarin, and it seemed like their GM is going all in for the Cup run this year. But I just don't think this Columbus team can even get out of the first round.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a big fan of the league in general or even a Blue Jackets fan, you might disagree with us. I think some people believe that they came out strong this year in their attempt for a cup run. But, I mean, if they don't make it far in this playoffs, they've never won a playoff series, first off. So if they don't go far, I think that's going to put a lot of strain on their coach and GM. It's going to make a lot of fans angry, and it's just going to make a lot of people unsure about what their future is going to look like.
Yeah, and another trade, on top of the Duchesne trade that Columbus did with Ottawa, they also traded with the New York Rangers for Adam McQuaid, who's, well, in my opinion, well past his prime, and he's definitely a 6th or 7th defenseman on any roster. And they traded Bergman and a 2019 4th and 7th round pick for him.
Absolutely. If this was the McQuaid that we saw in the past,
Boston,
it would be an amazing pickup. But like Tim said, he is past his prime, and whether or not he can get adjusted to where he is in the defensive lineup is still something that we're going to have to take a look at throughout the month of March.
Yeah. So we also have 2 other teams around the trade deadline that were very interesting to us in what they did in their moves. And we both pretty much summed it up as we want to say they were winners, but we want to say they were losers, but they definitely improved their rosters and future.
If you want to start.
So, all right. So I'll start with Boston. They traded with Minnesota for Charlie Coyle in exchange for Ryan Donato and a 5th round pick in this year's entry draft, which in my opinion is a pretty good trade. I wasn't expecting Boston to go after Coyle.
No, I wasn't.
I was surprised when I saw that he was the guy that we traded for. But when I saw what we gave up in exchange for Coyle, I wasn't upset with the trade. I saw it as a pretty fair trade. Coyle is only 26, so he's got 4 or 5 years at least left in his future. And then they also traded with the Devils for Marcus Johansson for a 2019 2nd round pick and a 2020 4th round pick, which I feel was an equal trade for the Devils. They got 2 draft picks out of it, and we got a pretty solid 2nd or 3rd line center.
Yeah, I mean, just to go over the Boston a little bit more, as being someone from Rhode Island, I have gone to a few Providence Bruins games this year, which are always a lot of fun. So it was cool to see Donato as one of those up-and-coming stars maybe for the Bruins, but I think it was a fair trade, and the Bruins have exceeded expectations on my end for this year. Yeah. So whatever they can do to push themselves closer to the Cup, I mean, they're going to have to give it all they got to get past Tampa. So I think it was a smart move on their end. Some background on Johansson and what's his name? Brad Marchand. So last year, Johansson and the Devils were going on a bit of a streak, and Marchand kind of gave him a bit of an elbow into his head, caused him to miss a few games. So there was a thought in my head that there might have been a little bit of animosity between their two. There definitely was last year, but I mean, as far as we've heard from the news, it looks like they've patched up their differences. Yeah. Getting into the next team, New Jersey Devils, obviously we got to talk about them. They've dropped off significantly since last year. Just little to no strength in their goaltending, and Taylor Hall's been out since December. Probably won't even return for the rest of the year.
I don't see it happening.
But let's get into what they acquired as far as assets. So they have a 2019 2nd round, a 2020 4th, a 2022 5th, Going back, they also have a 2019 third and actually a second one. So they have 2 seconds in 2019 and 1 third. I believe for the 2019 draft, they have between 9 and 11 picks.
They have 7 picks within the first 2 rounds, I believe.
Yep, and then I think they have 1 from the 4th through the 7th.
Yeah.
So they have a lot this year. Hopefully they don't use them all. I really hope that when it comes down to the draft, that they use some of those. I mean, it would be great to see us pick up a lot of guys in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but I don't think we need all of them.
It doesn't seem like you would get a very valuable player right off the bat. If you drafted all of those draft picks, in my opinion, you would be looking at least 2 to 3 seasons before you see those guys actually productive.
And we already have so many people who are potential prospects. I really think we need someone who can play with Hall and the other veterans now.
I would trade those draft picks for maybe a guy that isn't necessarily past his prime, but well into his career and his experience.
And I think a lot of GMs now, especially ours, are making it like very aware that if they know they're not going to maybe the conference finals or far like that, they don't want to pick up someone off waivers who they're going to have to dump a ton of cap space into. Yeah. So I think they need to really be smart with their trades.
And I just want to hit one more thing about Boston right now. Just a little side note, they did not lose 1 game in regulation in the month of February.
Which is insane.
And in their last 10 games, they are 9-0-1. And even the first place Tampa Bay team, who has been a clear front runner this year, has over the last 10 records of 9-1-0.
Yeah, and I mean, they played Tampa Bay the other night, and, you know, Tampa Bay was coming off a back-to-back. But Bruins just went on. They scored 3 goals in 2 minutes, which is insane.
Not only was Tampa Bay coming off a back-to-back, it was I believe the tail end of a road trip for them.
Yes,
they had played like Buffalo and the Rangers back within 3 days, and then they played the Rangers and traveled up to Boston.
Yeah, so they definitely weren't at full strength as far as being rested and ready to go. But it was a little interesting look into what we could see in the playoffs.
Especially because a lot of those past 3 or 4 games that Tampa Bay won, all of them went to overtimes or shootouts.
Yeah.
So they were very long games. But Tampa Bay, I heard from multiple people, they appeared a little sluggish. And that's kind of interesting because we do still have over a month left in the season.
Yeah, I mean, just look at their record for this year. A lot of people say that they got hot too early and they might start dropping off.
I'm not guaranteeing that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
But I wouldn't. If that does happen, I wouldn't be surprised.
It is our last full month of hockey before the playoff season, so it's definitely going to be a great time to gauge where people can go and where they might drop to.
All right, so you got something about a no-show at the draft for some teams?
Yeah, I think my biggest no-show at the draft would be Calgary. They only made one noticeable trade, and it was to kind of secure their back end a little bit. But still, I mean, they're on a 7-game win streak now, so maybe they really didn't need to pick anyone up. But when you're looking at other teams like Toronto and Tampa Bay, who also didn't really make any moves at the draft, I think those 2 teams are a lot more sure in their lines and their players than Calgary is.
Even though Calgary is the first place team in the West and well ahead of Toronto in the standings, for some reason, I just look at Toronto as a more stable and secure team. Right?
Yeah, Calgary makes me nervous because it is awesome. We're kind of getting into this new wave of playoffs where we're not seeing the same teams show up. We're not seeing the same ones go to the finals. It's awesome to see all of these new guys kind of come in. So I want to see Calgary go far. It'll definitely be interesting to see what they can do in the West. And I hope the fact that they didn't really make any big moves at the trade deadline doesn't hurt them.
Just looking at the standings right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are tied with the Columbus Blue Jackets at 75 points. However, they have less regulation wins than the Columbus Blue Jackets and have played more games, so they lose the tiebreaker. The Pittsburgh Penguins are not in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, I know. They might not make it to the playoffs this year, which would be crazy. But
I'm waiting. Every year, the past few years, the Penguins have started out, and everybody's been like, oh, they look a little sluggish, look a little off. but then they hit like a month or two where like it's just like demolition of whoever they play. And I'm waiting for that to happen, and it hasn't happened yet.
Which makes a lot of sense because when you look at their top lines, when you look at their best players, I wouldn't say they're past their prime, but they're definitely getting to the ends of their career.
Yeah.
So they can't be like these teams who have all of these guys in their mid-20s who are going hard all year. They've got to save their energy for the most important parts of the season, which is why March is going to be really interesting because this is it for them.
Just look at Chicago. You have Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh, and then you have Kane and Taves in Chicago.
And just look at where they are versus each other in the standings.
It's crazy. All right. So last night we had a huge Central Division matchup between the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators. It was their first time playing against each other since the trade deadline. Nashville had a 1-point lead over Winnipeg in the standings. However, Winnipeg won that game 5-3 and took the lead again in the Central Division. And right now, it's clear that the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators are the top two teams in the Central.
Absolutely. And if I was Nashville, I would be a little nervous because I think the Jets have way more time to loot or to spend as far as getting to the conference or Stanley Cup finals.
He's just starting his career.
Exactly.
You have Johansson, Yossi, Ellis, Ekholm, Subban. Like, how many more years is PK Subban really going to be a franchise defenseman?
And I know we've talked about it, but Nashville realistically only has maybe 2 more years to win a Stanley Cup before they're going to start losing guys, have to trade people away.
Rene's 35. Like,
I mean,
is definitely getting up there.
And Nashville isn't really a team that we associate with having strong plans for the future as far as prospects or anything like that. I kind of want to. I want to say this next one. So, Carolina Hurricanes have always been a team that we associate with not having a huge fan base. I know tons of people are still pissed off about them kind of taking the Hartford Whalers away from Connecticut and bringing them down south.
And for years, it's been the Hurricanes and the Phoenix Coyotes were two teams that were always rumored about relocation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have mixed feelings about it, but it's awesome to see the game branch away from its traditional locations. It's awesome to see teams out west, down south, in places where hockey isn't really tradition.
Yeah, like the Montreal Canadiens, they haven't won a cup since 1993, but it's still good to see them not necessarily be dominating the league.
Exactly. And I mean, those fan bases have such a rich history. They've been around for like over 100 years, or just about 100 years. So it's good to see some of these new teams, like the Canes specifically have this celebration type thing that they do at the end of every game.
The Storm Surge.
Yeah, the Storm Surge. A lot of people don't
Especially
like it,
Don
but
Cherry, bunch of jerks.
And they've taken that around. They're selling shirts like crazy. People love when you say bad things about their fan base because it only fires them up. I remember, to bring it back to the Devils for a minute, when Wayne Gretzky just absolutely went off on them, and after the game called them a Mickey Mouse organization. People were wearing Mickey Mouse ears to games. Like, it's just something to fire your team up around. They did something interesting last night, though. They brought in Holyfield, which is a boxer. He's most famous for his little bout with Mike Tyson. But he was at the game. They were panning the camera on him from time to time. He was right up against the glass. He was getting into it. And at the end of the game, when they were doing their surge, they kind of had him put up the knucks against one of their teammates, and they did a little faux knockout. Yep, so that was interesting. It was hilarious to watch him drag him off the ice. So, and the Canes are legit now. I really think that they're going to hold their spot, probably just as a wild card, but I see them going to the playoffs.
Yeah, right now they're third in the Metro.
Yeah, and I mean, the Metro is so close, it's really tough to say, but...
It's tough because the Metro is so competitive, and I hate to say this, but it seems like the Metro is almost one of the weaker divisions in the league.
It's hard to...
Is it the weaker division in the league, or is it just the teams are so close that when they play each other, they win?
I think it's a little bit of both, When you're looking at teams like Pittsburgh, the Rangers... These are a lot of teams who you saw some crazy stuff from in the last 10 years. But like we all know, you can't sustain things like that forever. So maybe there is a little bit of dropping off, but I think it is the fact that these games are close and a lot of these teams are rivals and they don't like going home with losses.
Also, not only are the Hurricanes going crazy with this storm surge celebration, but they're also on a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And are 8-0 in their last 10 games. And they don't show any signs of being tired. In my opinion, they're honestly just heating up.
Yeah, definitely.
They got
crazy
the
to see
new
what
head
they
coach this year, Brendan Moore, who won a Stanley Cup with the Hurricanes. He's like the Tom Brady of the Hurricanes. So I think he's definitely doing a tremendous job this year with the team, and I hope the Hurricanes continue it and get into the playoffs this year.
A little bit more news. Senators fire their head coach, which I don't know if I really saw it coming. You knew there were going to be changes, but with only a little bit over a month and a half left in the season, it's kind of weird to see that happen.
Because you're pretty much just throwing your season away even more.
Yeah. I mean, I know that they already have an interim coach stepping in, but who are they really going to attract into Ottawa's into their organization?
And they made all these trades for all these draft picks and players, and I know the coaches don't make the complete decisions. It's the GMs that decide like the players and who they pick and stuff. But when I saw all of the draft picks and players coming in, I did not expect them to just fire their coach 2 days later.
Also,
because that kind of just says to me they really have no plan moving forward.
Right, and a lot of even though there is a bit of separation between the coach and the GM, I mean the GM is supposed to put the team in the hands of someone they trust.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's making long-term moves and then firing the coach, it's like, well, what are you going to do in the next few years when these draft picks and prospects come along? You're going to have a brand new person who might not be that familiar with how they play coming in and trying to train these new guys as well as handle the veterans of the team.
Yeah. And then a little bit of an interesting fact from Philadelphia. For the second season in a row, I believe, they've had goaltending issues. Last season, I want to say they at least started 4 or 5 different goaltenders.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad last year.
But this year, they're now on their 8th goaltender.
Which is an NHL record. Congrats to the Flyers.
However, they were close to dead last not too long ago. And now they're, 5 or 6 points out of a
Yeah, I believe
spot?
they're 5 points out of a playoff spot. And the way things are going, Talbot helped them beat the Devils last night, which, isn't really a huge W, but it is 2 points in the Metro Division.
They're 5 points out of a playoff spot, and they're 6-3-1 in their last 10 games.
Yeah, and like we said, the Pens aren't for sure. The Blue Jackets definitely aren't for sure. So
I want to say the Capitals. I don't want to say that the Capitals aren't going to have another run this year because I can see it. They have the same roster. I do kind of like the Hagelin addition because he's well acquainted with the Metro Division. He was from Pittsburgh. He's if they have to play the Penguins, I think Hagelin could have a hell of a series.
Oh, definitely.
But I don't know. It's going to be tough for any team to beat Tampa Bay, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel bad for whichever team has to face them first in the playoffs because I think Tampa Bay is, if they don't slow down now, or even if they do slow down now, maybe they could take it easy in the month of March and give themselves a little breathing room to really come out swinging in the playoffs.
What they really, I think, need to think about is, do you want to have historic record regular season and risk being tired, or do you want to risk, because it's still a risk going a little light and taking it easy.
Right.
But you can, I think right now they're so far ahead, they could probably afford to take a few nights off.
Absolutely. And speaking of a historic season, Tampa Bay just also set a record, a little bit more impressive than the Flyers record, as being the second fastest team to reach 100 points. So they tied, I believe it was the 78-79 Bruins, as reaching 100 points in 63 games. And the only team they're behind is Montreal, who also set that record, I believe, sometime in the mid-70s.
I think it was 76.
Yeah, 76, which when you think of the 70s...
That was one of the greatest teams of all time.
Exactly.
That late 70s Bruins and Montreal teams, those teams are some of the greatest teams of all time. And then Tavares, Thursday night, made his return back to Long Island, and he got a little shit when he came out.
Yeah, from the second that he came out for warm-ups onto the ice, there were boos all night. There were chants towards the end of the
There
game,
were
like "Go to
signs.
sleep."
Yeah.
They were referencing the pajamas.
There
They were
were
throwing
signs
snakes on the
saying, "We
ice.
don't need you."
Yeah,
Like, I like. I don't mind the signs, and I don't necessarily mind the chants. I think throwing snake when you actually throw something at someone,
yeah,
because you can.
yeah. Someone when he was coming off the ice after warm-up, someone like tossed their old Tavares Islanders jersey at him and almost hit him.
Like I think throwing stuff at the players. I think that's when you take it one step too far. But you have organizations like Nashville who, whenever they score in a home game, they chant in the other goalie's name like "You suck," like it's all your fault. And like I think that's part of home ice advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I think chants of course, there's always going to be chants that aren't appropriate. But I think if they were chanting "We don't need you" and there was signs "We don't need you," I think that's all like fun and good. But I definitely think they took it one step too far.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's always nice to see a fan base get riled up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like it was as much Tavares' fault for leaving as it might have been the front end.
Yeah.
I think they could have seen the writing on the wall and maybe made the split a little bit more amicable. So it's really tough to put it all on Tavares' shoulders. Yeah. I personally thought going into that game that just the booze and the buildup were going to put the Tavares and the Maple Leafs into maybe like a little bit of like, we got to work harder. We got to beat this game. We got to show them that we're not just going to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah,
but
and they ended up the first goal. Too.
Yeah, they did. But then after that, they let in 6 goals, and it just, I don't know. They just got crushed.
So one of the hottest teams in the league right now, which is right behind Nashville and Winnipeg, and which can be a huge threat to Nashville and Winnipeg because neither of those teams have been that great in their past 10 games, although Winnipeg did beat Nashville last night. But the St. Louis Blues have gone from almost dead last in the standings to now third in the Central, and they're only 3 or 4 points behind.
Yeah, which not a lot of people saw coming, but when you look at who they have, I mean, Tarasenko, people were talking about him, people were putting him up on a pedestal a few years ago. So when you look at who the Blues have, O'Reilly. When you look at who the Blues have, it really makes a lot of sense that they're this high in the standings, but I think it just makes it a little bit sweeter for them being one of the last teams in the league earlier on in the year, and now fighting for maybe past wild card going into just a definite playoff spot.
I definitely think the top 3 teams are going to be Winnipeg, Nashville, and St. Louis. But there is a month left in the season. I don't know how those 3 teams are going to stack up, but looking right now, it looks like those are the top 3 in that division.
Yeah, and I think Blues owe a lot of their recent success to their new goalie, Bennington. I mean, he's started 11 games this year as a newer guy, and he has 10 wins and 4 shutouts over that period, which is an insane number for new goalies. I mean, I know Flyers a little while ago had Hart, who went off on like a huge streak to start, but it's kind of become out of the norm to see a goalie go into the lineup and just post amazing stats like that. You always see a little bit of beginner's luck. Maybe their first game or two, they do really good, and then after that, they start to normalize.
But this is almost, a month and a half?
Yeah.
Like, this is a month that he's been playing, and he's won them a lot of games, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just those shutouts, like, it's easy to win games when you're not giving up any goals.
Yeah. We got some news on Taylor Hall. Would you want to cover that?
Yeah, so Taylor Hall was the Hart Trophy winner last year for the Devils. There was a lot of talk that maybe it should have been McKinnon from Colorado, but he hasn't played since, I believe it's the end of December. I mean, I know in hockey, it's to a lot of fans' frustration that they don't really have to give away as many injury reports as, say, other bigger sports like the NBA and NFL do. So a lot of times you can just put a guy on the injury reserve and just disclose upper body injury, lower body injury, and there's really no talk of what happened.
Because honestly, an upper body injury could be a concussion, it could be a shoulder injury, it could be an arm injury. It's literally upper body.
Yeah, and I mean,
anything.
Taylor Hall's ended up being his knee. And apparently, according to the coach, there had been work with his medical staff as well as the team medical staff all year to try and avoid surgery. But, I mean, he's been out since December, and he just got surgery at the end of February for his knee. So
I really don't see him.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's going to return this year. But I don't know. A lot of times you see one of your favorite guys get injured, and it kind of sucks being like, well, there's not really a lot to disclose about what when he's going to be back.
All right, so we just got one more thing that I just want to run through real quickly, just a summary of the hottest teams in the league right now. We have stated earlier various teams are on winning streaks, but just to give you one last summary of what's going on. We got Calgary on a 7-game winning streak, first place in the Western Conference. Arizona creeping in for that second or first wild card spot right now with a 5-game winning streak.
It'll be interesting to see if they can keep that.
Yeah. Also interesting, I saw this morning, Arizona now has the best penalty kill in the league ahead of Tampa Bay. That's pretty impressive for a team that's not in the playoffs. That can help you a lot.
I mean, when you think about their win-loss record, it's definitely not bad. It's definitely deserving of a playoff team. But to be able to say you're the best at killing penalties you wouldn't think it's Arizona.
No. We got Carolina, like I said, on a 4-game winning streak and 8-2-0 in their last 10 games. I hope to see them just continue this impressive run as of late. Minnesota is on a 4-game winning streak. Vegas and Washington are on a 3-game winning streak. And then, probably to nobody's surprise, we have 4 teams right now that are kind of in a rough spot. We got Detroit and Ottawa both on 6-game losing streaks. Both of their seasons, you can write them off. Hopefully, their front offices can do something with what they're getting. And then LA is currently on a 10-game losing streak. I would hate to be in LA this year.
They have a brand new coach.
They don't have a bad roster. They have one of the best defensemen, but they're just old.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the biggest problem with their organization right now. They have a great roster of old players. So in the next few years, when you see these guys leaving, it's not like other teams where maybe like in Nashville, where you're saying a lot of these players are getting old, but they're going for the cup this year. It's like a team who might not even see the playoffs for the next year or two.
Honestly, with their ages right now, it would be hard unless they get a lot of young guys.
I mean, they're going to definitely be on the rebuild for a long period of time, and they're only going to be losing good players for the next few seasons.
All right, so I think that's going to cover it for this week's episode of Inside the Ice. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
We'll definitely have you on in the future. Tune in later this week for another episode of Inside the Ice. Have a great day.